Welcome to the internet. This is a Red Line podcast to, YouTube or something. I'm your host, Connor Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts,
Kyle Holland and
Alex Fielder. Today we're continuing our extended conversation about the rising cost of building transit in North America by talking about the Second Avenue subway, perhaps the most expensive metro project in the history of the world. We'll talk TBMs, Q trains, and union contracts after the news.
Imagine having a train named Q. That's embarrassing. Transit service has been disrupted across the Bay Area this week as torrential rainfall pummels the Pacific coast. Downed trees were the chief culprit, disrupting service on both Muni and Caltrain routes, but the rain itself was also a major issue, causing huge flat spots on a lot of BART trains, meaning that over 100 BART train cars are currently out of service. If you're in the Bay Area, expect a lot more disruptions, given that you're getting like 2 more of these horrible storms in next week. Overall, not that bad, considering y'all got 8 inches of rain.
love that. Any washouts on the Amtrak tracks?
In Southern California?
Yeah, the ones that run on the coast.
I think so, yes. Actually, I read something saying that they've had to stop work repairing them because of the new rain and that it's making things worse. So, great job, guys. Keep going. The subtitle of this first section of the Second Avenue subway is, quote, a long-expected project.
Oh yeah, how old of a project is the Second Avenue subway?
Literally 100 years. So they got the first part of what was supposed to be done in 1930 done in 2017.
And how old is America?
200 and some years.
Yep, so long time coming.
Yeah, a long time coming. So the Second Avenue subway was first conceived in 1920 in response to a massive surge in ridership following the First World War. Daniel L. Turner, at the time chief engineer of the New York City Public Services Division, drew up a comprehensive rapid transit system plan, which included a version of the Second Avenue subway running from the easternmost parts of the Bronx through Manhattan and into Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was going to be a lot more ambitious than it is now, because right now it just branches off the, please New Yorkers, don't murder me, you have 40 subway services. I think the BQM line, it branches off that, then goes to the east a little bit, then gets on 2nd Avenue and goes north for 3 stops.
Okay.
And the Q train runs through there.
Yeah. He originally wanted it to be 6 tracks.
Yeah, he wanted it to be
What the
6
hell?
tracks.
What the actual hell?
Can we say hex tract?
I think it would be hex track.
Is there even a railway that does that?
Look up the Japan Central Railway through Tokyo, and we'll see.
That's hex tract?
That is beyond hex tract.
Oh my goodness.
It's 12.
Well, he envisioned that it would replace several nearby elevated lines and relieve congestion on the already congested Lexington Avenue line.
Yeah, which I believe is the 4, 5, and 6, and also the 7, which is a rush hour train, I think.
Okay.
Please, once again, New Yorkers, you have 40 subway services. Do not lambaste me for not knowing your ridiculously and absurdly complicated system, and it's lovely, and I wish I lived there.
And if you know the whole system, that's good.
Yeah, congratulations. You have a bigger brain than I do.
This seems slightly ambitious.
Yeah, and the fact that the Lexington Avenue line is congested is going to keep coming up because it just never stops being congested because they never built the Second Avenue subway.
Which is why we're finally building the Second Avenue subway?
Yeah, in 2015, which was the peak year of transit ridership ever in America after, car, it had 1.3 million daily riders on the Lexington Avenue line.
Oh, jeez.
Whew.
So
on one line.
More than any other metro system in the country.
And 10x our whole system.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, big line.
Huge.
And they wanted to run 56 trains an hour through this.
On the 6 track.
Wait,
yeah, on the
56 trains an hour?
56 trains an hour. That would be including expresses and...
You could do that on a modern quad track.
Yeah, but still, 56 trains an hour.
Almost a train a minute?
That's almost a train a minute.
Holy hell.
So...
That's ambitious.
It was going to be a big deal. So, this line was not considered a priority by the IND, one of the 3 subways systems in New York at the time, which 2 of them are sort of the same and can work together. The other one has a different loading gauge, so it can't work with the other 2. And New York, they have a nightmarish subway system. I'll say that. It's old, yeah. So, yeah, it wasn't considered a priority by the IND, which was actually the city-owned one, so it was put on hold.
In 1927, however,
Daniel Turner drew up a revised version of his earlier plan, and this came much closer to happening. Reactions.
I'm hoping there's less than 6 tracks this time around.
I think that there were only 3.
Why not 4?
Because peak directional express service is kind of a New York hallmark, and you can do that with 3 tracks.
Good for New York.
Well, he really just cut it in half.
Yeah, he did.
Well, the city approved funding for his revised version of the line in 1929, and it was about 4 inches from happening when the Great Depression hit.
Awkward.
Forcing the project to be pushed back a full decade.
Which was then followed by the Second World War, which pushed it back further, and then the Korean War, which pushed it back further, and then, yeah.
Etc., etc.
Life happened.
Life
got in the way.
Life continued to happen in New York City.
So are we still sticking with that revised design today, or has it changed?
We'll get to that. But they kept revising the design because, like, one of the 1900s plans had, like, 4 tracks, and then another had 3 tracks again, another had 2 tracks, another had... And then they kept going. Like, they didn't actually come up with the plan that they would use today until the 90s. So they just kept, like, coming up with new ideas.
I guess when it's never making it that far through the planning and construction stages, you can just do what you want.
Oh, we'll get there. In 1964, the federal government passed the Urban Mass Transportation Act, authorizing federal funding for transit projects.
Wow.
The MTA was definitely coincidentally founded exactly 1 year later, and the Second Avenue subway became a prime project for them as the Lexington Avenue line had become extremely overcrowded.
As opposed to just crowded.
Yes.
Great.
As like it was before. 45 years earlier.
Well, then came good news, with construction finally beginning in 1927, and
1972.
Then... Ooh. Dyslexia. And then promptly ceasing after New York City began to experience a massive fiscal crisis. Although leaders hoped that the feds would bail out the line, it was the Nixon administration, and there was no way he was bailing out those damn commie cities.
Yeah. So the funny thing about New York City before the 1970s and after World War II is it had basically become what Bernie Sanders wants for America. Right?
Interesting.
Like, good health care, mostly socialized housing, like everything was socialized. And it was like kind of like the ideal social democratic city, and it was, doing okay. But then they forgot that you have to pay for the things you buy.
Intriguing concept.
And
using funny things like taxes.
Yeah, and so they were going to hit this fiscal cliff.
Because they forgot to get money before spending it.
Because they forgot to get money, and then they did hit this fiscal cliff. And New York, outside of New York City, is basically nothing. No offense to Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo, and Albany, and Long Island, and the rest of New York. But y'all, I hate to break it to you, like all of your tax revenue comes from the city. So, well, and this is especially exacerbated by the fact that at the time Syracuse, Buffalo, and Rochester were in just like massive decline because they're part of the Rust Belt. So New York City hits this fiscal cliff and they're like, hey, Nixon administration, we want to continue funding all of these social programs that we like having. The problem, the Nixon administration was in fact Republican.
That's a hard sell.
And so they didn't want to pay for service, as has been said previously. And so
service was defunded. Because they couldn't, raise enough local taxes in time?
Yeah, they couldn't bail it out. And New York City was also starting to go into its suburbanization decline at this time. Because it hit it a little, a decade later than the rest of the country because it's New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, anyway, they hit the fiscal cliff. The line was paused. New York has never been the same since. literally. Like, it didn't recover from that until, like, 95, maybe. Whew.
Jeez. That's when they made all the edgy movies, like Taxi Driver.
That's right. That's also when New York became the gay place. And
Ooh,
that's how
The gay place?
Yeah, so Richard Nixon caused Stonewall. There you go. That's your fact of the day.
I don't know history too well. What is Stonewall?
Stonewall is the riot that started the gay rights movement.
Oh,
Oh.
well,
It threw
thanks,
bricks
Nixon.
at cops and
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you, Nixon.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, thanks. Richard Nixon, an ally, actually.
Not on purpose.
Indirect.
Indirectly. But some sections were completed before the shutdown, specifically between 99th and 105th Streets, 110th and 120th Streets, and between Division and Canal Streets in Chinatown.
That's not very much, is it? Don't they have like little streets?
It's not very much. Yeah, they have normal blocks.
These little blocks,
Normal
Jeez.
blocks.
small blocks,
Normal blocks.
miniature
Small.
blocks.
Normal.
Small.
They're weird
You guys
shapes,
are
too.
weird.
Salt Lake is the average block size.
No, Salt Lake is the largest block size in the world.
Salt Lake is
No.
the standard block size as decreed by God himself.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Sorry, I forgot Joseph Smith, God, and Brigham Young.
Yeah, I'm with Kyle on this one. We
And
have
then-
normal sized blocks.
Yeah, and when they built these sections, they were double-tracked, except for one section, which was triple-tracked, but the third track was only meant for inspection trains. So
Okay.
it was double-tracked now.
Okay.
Oh.
Which is fine.
A far cry. It's been cut to a third of its original glory.
The hex track.
Yeah, the hex track.
Okay, well that's kind of excessive. Maybe just 4.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if they built a hex track?
Oh my god.
That would be so based.
That's like 3 subway lines in one.
Well, most New York subway lines are like 4 or 5 subway lines in one, so...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so when NYC began to recover in the 1990s, planning and work for the line began anew. By this time, the Lexington Avenue line was the most crowded line in the country, averaging 1.3 million riders by 2015. An EIS was undertaken in 1999, and after years of planning, construction of the first phase began in 2007. It was to be the most expensive subway line ever built.
2007 sounds like a bad year to start working.
Well, thankfully, this one kept going, although I imagine that the fact it wasn't completed until 2017
Has something to do with that.
for, mind you, 1.8 miles of track
Oh my goodness.
might have something to do with the recession, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. So
Go on.
phase 1, which is 1.8 miles from its interchange with, please don't quote me on this again, I think the BQM, which is the something Avenue subway. Let's see, I can look at it's down here somewhere. It's the Broadway line because it runs on Broadway.
Okay.
So
Creative naming.
yes. So that it basically runs from its interchange there to 105th Street.
Okay.
Pretty simple. And it's 1.8 miles, and it cost $4.5 billion.
Why is it so expensive?
It's New York, baby, New York!
Like, are we like relocating the catacombs?
Yeah, think about how many pipes they got down there.
Okay,
Isn't
but
this
even
deep
with
bore?
that,
Isn't this deep bore?
partially.
Partially?
Because some of the sections they were... they reused some of the sections that were built in the 70s.
Which were not deep
which
bore.
were not deep bore.
Back before they had
Oh.
deep bore. Wait, so they did tunnel boring machine at non-deep bore depth.
It was complicated. I am not particularly familiar with the particular construction details or methods, but it is primarily deep bore.
Interesting.
Yes,
With an absolute crap load of utility relocations
I assume so.
and
New York-
rat relocations.
The trouble with
Lots
building
of
things
rat
in New York is they
relocations.
don't know where any of their pipes are mostly
Yeah, that
because they
makes
have too
sense.
many of them.
Fair. I can't blame them for that.
And you gotta line the walls of the subway tunnels with $100 bills.
Yeah, which are definitely not a bribe.
There was no corruption involved in this project at all.
How could that be? How?
None.
Literally
How?
0.
Explain to me how that would work.
It's New York City. There has never been a corruption problem in New York City or the state of New York.
Nope, not once.
Never.
Nope.
Tammany Hall, what's that?
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
No corruption.
There's
Let's
no
move on.
corruption in New York. I'll put a horse head in your bed if you say there are. That's Jersey, actually. But, you know.
Close enough.
So phase 1 of the 2nd Avenue line opened on January opened in January 2017 and runs under Manhattan's 2nd Avenue from 65th Street to 105th Street, with stations at 72nd, 86th, and 96th. It's double-tracked, and basically they didn't do like a single bore. They have double bore, so there's 2 different tunnels between stations. Yeah, and then all the stations are island stations because reasons.
Because we wanted to put the
keep
track
down
tunnels
costs.
farther apart from...
To keep down costs.
But haven't you seen the ones in, like, London where they do, like, a dual-bore tunnel and the 2 bores are right next to each other, and then they do these, like, big bores for the stations, or at least they look like big bores because they've got an arch on the ceiling for structural purposes.
I don't know why they did island platforms, especially given that this line is anticipated to eventually carry similar numbers to the Lexington Avenue line.
So shouldn't they have done side platforms to facilitate any possible future expansion?
You would think.
They'll just have to overpay for that
they'll pay $1 billion for that in 200 years.
So.
Yeah.
They could just build the second pair of tracks underneath the first.
And it's not the BQM, it's the BMT line.
Oh,
so I was actually close.
You got 2 of the letters.
Are you proud of me? I did. And then it becomes the BMTQ because the Q runs into it.
Oh, wow.
Or something. So it connects to the Broadway Street line and also to a different line, which I can't remember right now. Oh, the 6th Avenue line. But they don't use that for revenue trains anymore since 2020.
Oh, why not?
Since 2020.
COVID service cuts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then also the N and R trains, which are rush hour only trains, operate on the line as well. So there you go. That's the 2nd Avenue line. It was constructed over 10 years at a cost of $4.8 billion for 1.8 miles of track.
As many
$4.5 billion.
As many people have been saying, not a lot of train for a lot of money.
You don't say. Let's go on to phase 2, shall we?
Well, I imagine that would be more efficient and cheaper than the previous phase, right?
Yeah, that's sure, definitely. So they want to extend it like 20 blocks to 125th Street, and
only 20 blocks.
Yeah, it's gonna have 3 new stations. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be brand new. It's phase 2 of 4, so eventually they want to take it into Brooklyn and further into...
In what, like 2100?
Yeah, something like that. But don't look at the thing. Guess how much it's going to cost. This 1.5 mile
Well, this
expansion.
one's like half as long, right?
No, it's 1.5 miles.
Okay, so it's the same length?
Roughly. 0.3 miles shorter.
$2.5 billion.
I can't guess, but that sounds about right. That sounds fair.
Okay. Seems pretty reasonable, right? $2.5 billion. That's still a lot of money, but New York.
It's New York.
It's New York.
And it's an incremental improvement over the previous project.
And it's going to get 6 trillion riders a second anyway, so it doesn't, you can spend a lot of money on it. It'll still be worth it.
Yeah.
So this 1.5 mile 3-station expansion into Harlem. It's going to cost $6.4 billion.
What the hell?
United States dollars.
How? How?
That makes the cost per mile of phase 2 nearly $4.3 billion per mile.
What's the cost per foot there?
I don't know. Do the calculations real quick, but it should be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So that's going to be the most expensive real estate in the city then?
Yes, this will be the most expensive rail project anywhere ever.
$814,000 per foot, or just short of $1 million per foot.
Okay, I didn't do that math, but I'm glad you did because that's fucking hilarious.
You could pay some like PhD students to like $100 an hour to go in with a pickaxe and make
It'd
those
probably
tunnels.
be cheaper.
You could pay me $50 an hour to do that.
You could pay me $5. You could pay me $20.
You could pay me the New York minimum wage,
which is $15.
Okay, pay Connor $15 an hour to go dig with a pickaxe, and it will cost a small fraction of the price.
And take less time, probably, because the anticipated opening of this thing's in 29 or 30. And I think they're working on it right now, if I'm not mistaken.
And then you can go get, like, Brian the plumber or whoever to go move the pipes as Connor's digging with his pickaxe.
See, why do we have to do things like
$1 million a
and,
foot?
Like,
this isn't even an ethics problem at this point. We're way past the, like, costs of safety.
Yeah.
$1 million a foot.
So what's interesting,
I wish I got paid $1 million.
And I'm glad you guys mentioned the cost of safety, because this has been one of the MTA's key excuses. Well, we're safer and we have more regulations here in New York than in other places.
Great.
And that's why it costs more. And that is a lie, because there are 5.5 accidents per unit of working. I think it's 100,000 man hours in New York City construction, even though it costs more, versus 3.3 elsewhere in the country for transit projects.
Interesting.
Is that because of all the pipes they keep hitting their heads?
This is probably incompetence and stupidity, but
Probably. And at any rate, we're still well beyond the cost of safety.
So let's talk about why this costs so much in New York, even compared to other really expensive cities, because the MTA would have you believe that everything costs so much in New York because it's New York. It's New York.
Even though there are already other huge old dense cities we can compare to.
Yeah.
that
Let's
also
think
have
for a
subways.
second. London, Paris, Moscow,
Paris
Tokyo.
has the catacombs.
Paris has the
Why'd you
actual
keep-
catacombs.
Why'd you keep saying catacombs?
Yes, catacombs.
Catacombs. Boise.
Boise.
Boise, Idaho.
All right, so Paris having the literal catacombs.
Yeah, and it costs oh gosh. Oh, I gotta find the. Hold on, this
If
is.
you
really...
thought pipes were bad.
You're killing me
try
when you say
skeletons.
catacombs.
Hey, you just
Okay,
said
okay.
it.
I think
Yeah,
pipes
so-
are harder to move than skeletons.
So Paris is building a new deep bore subway line called Line 14. It's gonna be a circle line. Basically,
Okay.
It's a really big deal. It's gonna cost $450 million a mile, whereas the first phase of the Second Avenue subway cost $2.5 billion a mile.
That is a factor of 5.
Right, and these are similar cities. They're super expensive. There's tons of old crap underground. There's all of this.
Factor of 5.
And also, it's France, where you're legally allowed to take half the year off for vacation.
yeah,
So
it must be the rat relocation fees.
Oh yeah.
That's gotta be it.
And I'll certainly make
New York doesn't even have that many rats.
Oh,
There's only
compared to
okay.
London.
There's only 2.5 million rats in New York City.
Well, how many rats per person?
fractional.
0.3 rats.
You don't
per
even
person.
get a rat per person?
No.
Oh, okay.
Whereas-
that's no rats.
Whereas in London, there are 8 million people and 11 million rats.
See, that's
and they
what I'm
still
talking
manage
about.
to have cheaper construction costs.
Okay. Yeah, that's no excuse then.
Aren't they also doing huge mine stations on the Second Avenue
Of
subway?
course they are.
They're Texas. They're doing it Texas style.
They're doing it Austin style.
See, that's
yeah.
what I was thinking when we brought this up.
So let's look over some of the reasons here. So, reason number 1.
The ground is full of cost snakes that slither around and bite all the workers, and they eat the raw materials, and they burst all the pipes.
Yes. No, reason number 1 is overstaffing. So on average, contractors are hiring 25 to 30% more workers than are actually needed to do the job.
Questionable.
Ooh.
This is partly because of unions.
Old union rules.
Old union rules from the 1900s when you had to dig the things out by hand.
Yeah.
So that's not great.
Side note on the union thing, this whole thing where certain old unions will try and have more jobs never made sense to me, because your job as a union is to protect the interests of your union members, and
Right,
automation,
but they never got rid of those workers.
and automation and technology allow you to have fewer, significantly higher quality jobs, and I would think that would be in the interest of the union.
No.
But you could get paid to just watch someone else
Yeah,
work.
because there are people who are
And-
actually getting paid in these New York subway constructions to sit and run automated elevators, to sit and watch generators run, things
that's my kind of job.
Crazy bullshit scaremongering Republican union jobs, which, while being great and hilarious, is not ideal.
So someone's probably counting rats on a notepad.
And this isn't even the union doing this. This is the contractors doing this.
Because the contractors know they're going to get whatever money they ask for, because it's got to be built.
Right. This is the unions,
Are probably
are not
cooperating.
doing this. Well, I mean, if you're the union and you're smart, heck yeah, you want your union member to get to sit around watching a generator run. Heck yeah, that's a great job. All you have to do is sit and watch a generator run. Or operate a push-button elevator. That's a great job.
So they're doing some bad contracting.
Yeah. Oh, well, and the thing is, these are and these are like New York union jobs, so you're getting paid like $100 an hour.
What the hell?
Because it's considered a hazardous condition. You're underground.
Maybe we should...
And then most of these jobs have built-in overtime as well. So they get paid $400 an hour for the built-in overtime.
Maybe we should rethink this in the light of the fact that it's not the year 1900 and it is okay to be underground.
We're underground. We're in an underground building right now.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We're in the underground portion of the library.
We should be getting quad time on the podcast. So
Seriously.
yeah. And then reason number 2 is a lack of competition. Because in most cities, when you're building an urban rail project,
you have a few different contractors.
You get like 8 to 20 bids for your project.
Whoa.
Okay.
In New York, they normally get 1 to 3.
So the contractor knows they can charge whatever the hell they want.
That's right. There's actually something that's called the MTA surcharge, where contractors will up their costs by
Just
up
for
to
MTA.
50% because the MTA
Has to
and
pay it
because
because
they know
nobody
they
else is
can
going to build it.
they know they can get away with it.
Well, why aren't there so few contractors?
Because they have connections in Albany.
Construction. Corruption.
No, wait, corruption?
New York has never had a problem with corruption and does not currently have a problem with corruption. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Why doesn't the MTA, as an old and big agency, not have an... Why don't they have an in-house construction department?
Because that's not how you do things. There's no... You just don't.
That's something that gets done a lot in road construction. Why couldn't we do that with subway construction?
Road construction is a constant thing you always have to be doing. Even with the most, the largest, subway systems in the world, you are never going to be constantly building more subway just because of how much capacity you get out of a subway and how much, even at its cheapest, building a subway line costs.
Really? Even in New York?
There have been long gaps where they haven't built anything.
Huh.
So we should...
Especially recently.
Interesting.
So we should have rail contractors that know they're going to die one day and incentivize to build as much rail in the U.S. as possible.
That's right.
Or just have a federal department that builds rail.
That's probably better, but... government.
Yep. Another thing, political pressure. Contractors add 25% as the MTA factor, then 10% as a contingency for possible changes, then another 10 to 12% on top of that for profit and overhead. And, we're paying 10% extra compared to other countries because they have to pay for workers' health insurance, and we're paying $100 or $400 an hour to people for overtime. So you can see how the costs start to add up.
Well... And the design, like we talked about earlier, grandiose underground stations that are entirely unnecessary when you could just build something practical.
Right.
Just doing the classic New York.
That's actually a big factor, design, because the MTA spent $1.4 billion designing this project.
What the hell? It's tubes
in the design
underground.
Phase. And this is another thing where there is definitely no corruption in New York City ever. Where they only ever hire this engineering firm called WSP USA, which is made, surprisingly, almost entirely out of former MTA employees.
Interesting. That doesn't sound like
that's
a good...
No corruption in New York City ever.
That's not corruption, no. That's normal. Everyone does that.
Nobody could just be skimming hundreds of millions off of MTA for fun.
So you get these extravagant working costs because... contractors want to drive up costs even more by hiring more workers.
Because they can.
Then you have a 10% markup because you have to pay for worker health insurance in this country. And then you have $400 overtime. And then you have contractors marking it up 50% anyway. And then you have MTA just spending gargantuan amounts of money on the design phase and consultants and and then designing a poor design in the first place where you just have to excavate these cavernous stations and exceedingly complicated ventilation stuff, and you just get the most expensive subway project in the world, and it costs $4.3 billion a mile or whatever.
Thanks, complete lack of corruption in New York City.
Yeah.
They should just consult me, and I'll just be avoid the pipes, and make the stations just
practical.
Simple.
Like the tube station.
Copy paste New York.
And cover.
Would that actually be better than deep bore in New York?
It's always
with the
better
pipes?
than deep. It is always better than deep bore, no matter
pipes.
how many utilities you have. It's always better than deep bore because the thing about pipes is it's easier to know where they are the closer they are to the surface because you can do things like underground scanning and there's more likely been more recent work there, so you know what might be going on closer to the surface. But the deeper you go, the less you know about what's down there,
And I guess
including utilities.
there are practical limits in like the ground conditions as to how deep you can go, because you probably can't just go under all the pipes.
Well, you can, but then you couldn't get it back up to meet the Broad Street or Broadway line or whatever.
Right.
Because
we
New York loves interlining.
we could just-
interlines everything.
We could just pull a London and have like a transfer with a big set of escalators and a half-mile walk.
That's worse.
And it would be really, really, really hot underground. too,
Yeah.
just for fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really good project, not corrupt at all.
Yeah.
But
And here's a line from the New York Times. So France's unions are powerful, right? Like France is well known for being the country where you can take half your year off on vacation, they can't fire you. So on the Line 14 project, which is kind of analogous to the Second Avenue subway because it has similar design, similar, stations, et cetera, there were 200 total workers on the job, each earning $60 per hour. The Second Avenue subway employed 700 workers at any given time, each making $100 an hour. So, like we said, New York has never had any corruption ever.
Never. I don't know why we keep bringing this up.
No.
Could totally not fix all of this with like good contracting and labor practices.
No, you definitely couldn't.
Nope,
And-
not whatsoever.
And I think you should pay the workers $100 an hour, but also there should not need to be 700 of them. They have a very valuable skill and they deserve as much money as we can get them. However, there do not need to be 700 of them.
So use the technology and the automation and the machines to have a small number of high quality jobs.
Instead of a large number of jobs that are...
And then guess what, Connor? So say we get the number of people working on the Second Avenue subway down to 300 through good labor practices.
It's only costing us $300,000 per hour.
Great. And then with all this money we have saved on the project by doing good contracting and labor practices, we can also do another second project at the same time and be back up to 600 jobs, except everybody's actually doing something productive and we're getting twice as much subway for our money.
That's interesting because, what a concept. Building more transit with less money by doing good practices and not corruption.
That's
Which
crazy.
doesn't exist in New York City.
Nope, not at all.
No.
Yeah. So that's this episode.
Sure is.
Yeah.
The New York episode.
Once again, to all New Yorkers, I am very sorry. I probably greatly simplified the process of getting this thing built in the first place. I know there's been a lot of people who have been advocating and fighting for it for a long time. And it is, despite its cost, probably worth it.
Yeah, because it gets 2 trillion riders a
huge
second.
amounts of ridership
And
in the future.
and is over a century delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so...
And
also, I'm sorry I probably called your trains the wrong thing because you have 40 of them.
Yeah. The good thing is
We hate you because we ain't you.
The good thing is we're probably well past far enough along in the design and construction process that we can crap on the complete lack of the corruption and talk about the things we can improve as much as we want without any actual risk of affecting the actual project.
Yeah, well, and the bad thing about this is that there are still phase 3 and 4, which is supposed to take it like the full length of Manhattan. And it's estimated that those will cost an additional $13.5 billion.
Where are these numbers coming from?
I don't know. So, what I would dearly love is for New York to be able to, get their costs down to the most expensive in the world, but only by a little.
Instead of by a large factor.
Right, so they could build just a whole crap ton of new subway lines and capacity improvements and make it so the parts of the subway that currently exist are better.
So if you can get from $13 billion for phases 3 and 4 to
$7 billion.
Yeah, and then spend the other $6 billion on fixing the rest of the subway.
Voila.
We're not suggesting MTA gets less money. We're suggesting they do more with the same amount of money.
Right. And actually, MTA should get more money, and they should do more with more money.
Doing more with more, not less with more?
That's right.
That's a crazy concept.
Yeah, it could not be VTA. So, yeah, that's the episode for today. If you're in New York...
Good luck.
Yeah. Good Lord. I'm sorry, guys. You guys... Man...
Enjoy the cavernous underground stations.
Yeah, I mean, go ride the Second Avenue subway. It's probably the nicest section of the subway at this time, but... And when I go to New York, I'll be going there to foam. So
Yeah, enjoy having nice trains.
yeah, you
and
guys do.
service.
You already have the best trains in this country. You could have it wouldn't even be hard for you guys to have the best trains in the world.
By spending money intelligently.
Well,
Yeah.
except Tokyo.
Yeah, except
Sorry,
Tokyo.
you can't beat Tokyo.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be hard for you guys to have the best trains in the world outside of Tokyo. All you got to do is fix corruption that does not exist, and and fix contracting and fix labor practices. A very simple process that's easy.
Yeah,
to do.
definitely.
Yep.
We're not digging into the most complicated, most political parts of the MTA machine.
Not at all.
Let's
Nope.
make New York the best city in the world again.
Well,
It already is the best city in the world. I
Oh.
don't know what you're talking about.
well,
Yeah.
Fortunately, it and its
Not
transit
Salt
agency
Lake.
are completely
Salt Lake
corruption-free.
City is not
Salt
the
Lake's
best
not
city
the
in the
best.
world.
Really?
Salt Lake City, more like Salt Lake Shitty.
Look,
With
I
the
would
best
say
blocks in
I
the
would
world?
probably say that I don't know. It seems that the size of a city is directly proportional to its quality generally.
Yeah.
Like Mexico City is the largest city in North America, and it's
Well,
a very
because the more population you have, the more cool crap you have.
right. So, but as an American nationalist and a chauvinist, New York is the best city in the world simply because it's the largest and best city in our country.
Let's go.
And Salt Lake's a close number 2.
I think Salt Lake.
I think that I would consider Philadelphia or Chicago a close number 2.
I think Salt Lake only makes any lists because it's the only city in a very, very large area.
Yeah,
So I have too much pride.
you do have pride in Salt Lake City, which is
Yeah.
good.
We have better blocks than New York, though.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
We do.
We
No,
objectively
bigger the
have...
better.
No.
Yeah.
That is actually
Yep.
wrong. In terms of walkability.
We could build cut and cover subway on any street.
So can they. The
Yeah.
streets are plenty wide. Their blocks are just small.
I
And
see.
you don't
Sounds
actually
like they
need that
need-
much space for cut and cover something.
Okay, but we can have an easier time doing it. We can just dig up half the street.
Sounds like they need
We
bigger
could do
blocks.
12-track cut and cover.
Bye. New York would be really well positioned to do super blocks, though. I will say that.
Bigger blocks?
They
Yeah.
aren't bigger. That's not what super block means.
So New York and Salt Lake can come to the same conclusion through different means, which
Yeah.
is big blocks are
And
good.
if someone wants to give me, I don't know, $1,000 to fly to New York and ride the 2nd Avenue subway, I will be. You should do that.
Yeah, and
Me
don't-
specifically.
Yeah,
screw
Yeah,
you.
you
don't think
specifically.
about us. So yeah.
Yeah, have fun,
Yeah.
nerd,
Yeah.
Homer.
I am a foamer.
All right, so our first AMA question, Ask Us Anything, from Patreon for December is from Zach Adams. Zach asks, so, how do y'all really feel about the gondola, winky face? And have y'all put much thought into what a more sensible solution would be?
I am gondola agnostic. Do not ask this question of me.
Yeah, I'm with Connor on this one. As a transit person who likes cool things that aren't roads, no complaints about spending government money to build a gondola. On the other hand, you could just run bus service and limit the amount of cars that can go on the road so it doesn't get clogged up.
I'm definitely. I don't really like the gondola, but I know it's going to get built, so
It's
I can live
speed
with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, bus service. I'd be
Based.
improved bus service when we actually have operators.
Yeah, here's the thing that annoyed me, because the two options UDOT, quote-unquote, gave to the public, close quote-unquote, were A, widen the canyon road and run buses, or B, build an entire gondola. There was no...
There was a third option.
There were 5 options.
There
They-
wasn't one
they-
fielded in the final selection, which is just run more buses and limit the cars.
Yeah, it was widen the road or build massive snow sheds over the road.
Well, they're building the snow sheds anyways.
What's the
Are
point of
they?
the snow shed?
To prevent snow from getting on the road.
So you can make sure...
Wah.
Because even though we have a gondola, we need to make sure we can get more cars up more easy.
Right.
Yeah. So they're building the snow sheds anyways, which is
I didn't know they were doing
which is
the
part
snow
of the
sheds.
gondola price tag. And they're also widening Wasatch and building a bunch of parking, which is also part of the gondola price
See,
tag.
I think
So
instead
most of the cost isn't actually the gondola.
Gondola's like half of it.
Sick. So we could double the cost of the gondola by double the length of the
By
gondola.
going to Park City.
Yes.
Also, I was looking on Google Maps earlier, don't ask why. But do you know what resort we should build a gondola to? Snow Basin, up in Ogden.
Why?
Because if you look on a map at Snow Basin, so Alta and Snowbird, you go to the bottom of the ski lifts with your car, and then you take the ski lift up the mountain. At Snow Basin, you drive around to the back side of the mountain instead of the side that's like on the front by the city.
You could put a gondola right to like downtown Ogden from there.
I know, because the Snow Basin Road, the car route, is like 20 miles from Ogden Front
It's a long and pretty dangerous drive.
Yeah, so if I put this into the trip planner here real quick.
Replace OGX with a gondola.
Based.
See, a gondola would be much better.
Yeah,
though.
but watch this.
I see what you mean.
I put this into the trip planner. You got to do this big like hook shape up around through some small towns to get into Snow Basin on the other side of the mountain. Or you could just build I'm measuring the straight line distance, a 2.5 mile long gondola to the peak that Snow Basin services.
Or you could do a 5.46 mile long gondola to downtown Ogden.
Which would be incredibly based.
Big brain.
Another bad
You can
thing
stick
about
it on
that.
top of the Cache Valley Bank building.
Wait, put it on the Cache Valley Bank building?
Yeah, that's
Which
the
is in
tallest
Ogden?
building in Ogden.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, there's a Cache Valley Bank in Ogden?
I think so. I think
Not
they're
in
headquartered
Cache
there.
Valley?
They have like a real tall building there if you look.
The Cache Valley Bank I know is in Logan, which is in Cache Valley.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that's also one, but it's like... Yeah, right
What?
there. Cache Valley Bank, that building.
That's
right there.
a nice
It's like the
building.
tallest building in the city.
Wow. And it's also the tallest building in Logan. I'm pretty sure.
Cache Valley going hard, I guess.
Yeah, outside of Cache Valley.
That's right.
Well, that canyon's that's a really bad drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So build a different gondola is what you're saying.
I'm
Yes,
saying let's build a
yes.
gondola following the road so it's just as...
Oh my goodness.
That's terrible.
Because it's either, according to my trip planner here, a 16.5 mile drive on weird canyon roads from the mouth of the canyon, the east side of Ogden, or 2.5 mile bird's eye view gondola, which is obviously longer because it goes uphill. But
Well, if you build it from that Eccles Dinosaur Park, I'm sure they would pitch in because they're notorious for having tons of money.
well, you could build it straight from Weber State.
There's plenty of parking at Weber State.
Yeah,
You could build a gondola from Weber State
is
to
a
Snow
parking lot.
Basin.
Like,
Weber
yeah.
State
Hey, you could
really
use the
is
existing parking lot and save on construction costs
They have a
Yeah.
sad stadium too.
with the parking crater next to it.
Yeah.
You should see the...
Oh, and the D
Weber-
Event Center, there's even more parking there.
Yeah.
You should see the Weber State campus right below Hill Air Force Base.
Oh.
Yeah.
The mini one?
The mini one, but...
Is it here?
here.
Where? Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, that one.
That's a
Look at that
lot of
parking lot.
parking.
Yeah.
And a solar farm for some reason.
Yep.
And a
But
bus stop.
All right. So we can go from this pile of dirt next to Weber State main campus to the Needles Lodge at Snow Basin in a 3.2
Why Needles
mile.
Lodge?
it's a
I
nice
don't know.
lodge.
It showed
Put
up
it
on
at the top of the mountain.
This is at the top of the mountain.
Where?
Yeah, the Needles Lodge is really close to the top.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's
But-
just labeled on the map, so I'm choosing that. That's a 3.2 mile straight line distance. Obviously longer because you can't go in a straight line and you have to go up.
Weak.
But that's like half the length of the Alta Snowbird one.
Well,
The-
I look forward to riding the gondola.
I do, but like my new official take on this is build it at Snow Basin because it would actually be a huge improvement in transportation
Trouble is,
there.
Snow Basin isn't as much of a tourism one as Alta and
So?
Snowbird are.
They could
The
actually
point
use
is
a gondola.
tourism.
Okay, run buses for the tourists.
Tourists can't ride buses.
No,
Oh,
those are for
right.
the
Those
locals.
are for the poors. and
The
the
local
locals.
poors. Yeah.
Not
Like
the
me.
abroad tours.
Not for the rich tourists.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're skiing and you're a tourist, you're rich. If you're skiing and you're local, you're middle class. So
No poors are allowed to ski.
it's a cost barrier.
This is true.
Like, skiing is expensive. I spent an entire 2 weeks paycheck on a Icon Pass. So
Is that check with a QUE at the end?
I don't know. I'm American. Go America, USA, USA. Come on, join the chant. USA. Thank you.
USA.
But
Thank you.
We lost the World Cup.
Now, better solution, we do a ski tube.
What's
I
a
like
ski tube,
I like a
Connor?
ski tube.
You like a ski tube. You know what a ski
yeah.
tube is.
What's
Yeah,
a
I've
ski
been
tube,
through a
Connor?
ski tube.
So a ski tube is this thing they did in Australia, because Australia, fun fact, actually has 5 ski resorts because
That's
they have
less than we have in Utah.
these wimpy ass mountains called the Great Dividing Range that get snow on them.
Who
Sort
names
of.
these?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I thought a ski tube was a tube that goes through the mountain that you ski through.
No,
Okay.
it's a train. So it's a train, and it is
It's a tunnel.
5.3 miles long, and it runs from this giant parking lot, which could be, of course,
Transit accessible.
transit accessible parking lot instead of the non-transit accessible parking lot.
Precisely.
And one of the 2 ski resorts that this goes to, Perisher, I think, relies only on the ski tube train for deliveries. So it doesn't have a road to it.
Which
Just the
saves
train.
a lot
Yeah.
of maintenance
And
costs.
so the train runs like on a normal adhesion railway for like most of its length until it gets to the mountain. When it goes into this super steep tunnel that turns into a rack railway, and this like single track tunnel all the way to the top of the mountain.
That's awesome.
I
And
know.
it's this pretty small operation. Like they've got single-digit number of train sets.
3.
Or like 4 or something. Sometimes they take them apart and attach them to different ones depending
Yeah.
on the time of
But
day.
it's called ski tube because the trains are basically like subway trains. Like they're
Yeah.
really big and they have this super wide loading gauge and it's very cool. We'll link the Wikipedia of it in the description, but it's my opinion that what we should do is a mixed operation train that runs along I-215 from Salt Lake City and then seasonally continues up to Alta and Snowbird and then to Park City through the mountain. And then we get rid of the road and we just have a train there instead.
So, have the train run in between the highway?
No road. No highway.
No, I'll get rid of the
Yeah, just
highway?
get rid of it and put the
Okay.
train there.
I don't think that would be too popular.
Why not?
People like their highways.
Sucks. People like having a canyon not despoiled by a gondola too, but they're getting that. So,
It
So-
wouldn't be spoiled that much.
and we
Yeah.
can put flag stops on the way for recreational purposes.
Of course.
And anyway, my idea is that instead of doing a gondola or expanding the road or doing both, which is probably what's going to end up happening, we just get rid of the road and we build a ski train that also goes to Park City.
That's never going to happen, though.
It will when I'm dictator of America.
I mean, that does solve everybody's complaints other than cost with the gondola project.
Cost schmost.
It's UDOT, so yeah, actually.
They have unlimited funny money.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're not going to build trains with their funny money, though.
Well, if it serves the people who drive their car to the base of the train
Yeah.
to ride it up the mountain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if
It
they
can
make all
also
the fare
serve the
money,
people that go on the bus to the bottom of the train to go up the mountain.
yeah.
Are you in favour of the alternative cog rail proposal, then?
That's what this would be.
But underground?
No, it doesn't have to be underground.
Oh, in place of the road?
Yeah, just
Weren't
get
they
rid of the road.
Right, because they want to do the cog rail in a new place, which would have involved quite a bit of environmental destruction, which is bad.
Nice.
A lot,
Popular.
yeah.
And I say road go bye-bye, train go hello.
So that's got to actually be pretty cheap because you already have like a nice right-of-way,
Yep. So anyway, that's my 14 cents.
at least.
Well, why not have... See, this might be a dumb idea, but you get rid of one lane of the road, you have one way up,
You can just
and then coming down you follow the train.
you can just
Because you can't do cog rail, you have to have...
Oh, yeah,
Because
okay.
this is too steep for a conventional adhesion railway, even
Yeah.
a light rail. So you have to have the cogs to ascend.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's going
And
to be
descend,
too
otherwise
much,
you'll-
yeah.
and you can do all your construction over summer season, like they do with the ski lifts, or at least tried to do with the ski lifts this year. Did
Yeah.
not work. They're
Didn't
still
work.
doing construction.
Yeah. Well,
It's
yeah.
like a Swiss railway in the middle of Australia. Basically is what this is.
Like in the middle?
Well, I don't know where Perisher is. Let me look
That'd be
it up.
good to know. Surely southern Australia.
Yeah, it's in like, I want to
Yep.
say New South Wales. Yeah.
That makes sense.
In the Great Dividing Range next to Mount I can't pronounce Kosciuszko, which is the tallest mountain in Australia.
Oh yeah.
At staggering 6,200 feet. which is about the elevation of where we're standing now, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so see, the bottom one, which is Perisher, has a parking lot, but the other one does not. And so to get here to Blue Cow, you take the train.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
I reckon you could also do the...
see. Here's the Ski Tube Perisher station on the map, which is not very visible. Anyway, it says it right there.
All they need there is a transit-accessible parking lot instead of a non-transit accessible parking lot.
Yeah, they do have a non-transit accessible.
Well, no, you can take a Greyhound there. And
Once a day.
Yeah, and then sleep overnight, and then ski, and then sleep overnight again, and then take the Greyhound out, which is practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon they could do constructing a train on the road up Little Cottonwood, starting at the top and going down. Like, if their construction logistics broke down and they had to finish it the next season, you could just run a bus bridge and meet in the middle or something.
How about...
Or start at the bottom and go up and run the buses on the top end.
How about we build an elevated train above the road?
Oh my god.
That's cursed.
Obscenely expensive.
Yeah.
That's hard enough on regular terrain. Would solve the snow shed problem.
It would. Big time. Well...
Because it would be a snow shed.
Not necessarily.
That would block the snow from going on the cars.
But the snow shed is to stop, like, snow from coming down the mountain, not coming from the sky.
Okay.
For the most part.
Does it really matter if a bunch of snow piles up on the train tracks? You can just get some, like, heavy specialized equipment to plow it off.
Well,
or you can just keep running the trains.
Yeah. If there's, like, an avalanche, you're going to need some specialized equipment. But other than that, you're fine.
No, if it was right above the road, though.
Yeah.
All the snow would still come on.
Okay, well, you could, like, close it off on the side.
Yeah. But that wouldn't be good for
the...
Well, yes, because we're trying to accommodate cars here.
Yeah.
Why would you do that when you cannot?
America.
Exactly.
Just say it.
Well, anyway, good question.
Yeah, good question, Zach Adams. Thank you. And we'll see you next episode with another Ask Us Anything question. Give us money on Patreon if you want to ask those and have us answer them on air.
Money, more like funny.
Funny money.
Okay, so our patrons at $10, at $20 at slightly above Frontrunner tier, we have Zach Adams. At $10 per month Frontrunner tier, we have Curtis Herring, Mike Christensen, and Phobos2390.
At $5 a month, our red line tier, we have Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, Jacob Whitecotton, Robert P. Walsh, and...
That's it.
At our
$3 blue line tier, we have Ben Busath, DJ Will Watkins,
Hey Will,
Ethan McDonald, John Heron Gorman, and Martine Hecker Martinez.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, patrons. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you should make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and then follow us and leave us a rating on any other platform, especially iTunes and Spotify. You should follow us on Twitter at capital red, capital line, _ not capital, pod.
Not to be confused with the other similar Twitter handle for a similarly named podcast about something completely unrelated.
Yeah, which I should be a guest on.
Us.
I'd be a good guest on there, you know.
You would be.
My specialty in my political science degree is international relations. So
which would be an excellent fit for that.
That would be a good fit. So invite me on. I'll talk about, I don't know, something.
Content be like.
Yeah. Other things that I have to advertise. Oh, I have a new Twitter account.
It's a Pete Buttigieg one.
It's at nationalization _now. Both are capitalized. You should follow it because I want to be annoying about nationalization. Anything else?
Off to the podcast minds we go to dig up episode 30.
New York, New York, it's a hell of a town. The subway's expensive, da-da-da-da-da-da. In the Broadway style.
Yeah.
Get
it? Because there's a subway under Broadway.
Yeah, the Broadway subway, which carries the B, M, and T. I remembered.
Yeah.
Bacon, marmalade, and tomato.
Make sure...
Bacon, marmalade, and tomato?
If you're on YouTube, fact check us about all things New York.
Okay, yeah, actually fact check us about all things New York. Also, we know that réseau is network. You can please stop commenting that on on the REM
Hey,
episode.
The easiest way to get video engagement is by saying wrong things on air.
Ah, yes.
Like,
my
we're going to
bad.
get a lot of comments about you mixing up the BQ whatever and the BM
I called it
whatever.
the BQM and it's the BMT. I was close.
Well, and also
were
you're
close.
saying catacombs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Engagement
this is
Gilbert.
actually our sneaky strategy to get engagement.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's
this was intentional the whole time.
Definitely not
yeah.
just not
Us
revising the
being
scripts.
incompetent. Yeah. Or me being incompetent, I guess.
Yeah, this is entirely your fault, Connor,
Yeah.
as the host.
Yeah. That's right. So yeah, I mean, the thing about New York is, like,
It's a hell of a town.
New York, New York, it's a hell of a town. No, it's... I want to do an explainer episode so bad, but I know it would turn into like a 6 or 7 part series because...
Can we do the Corruption in New York series, please? Please?
Well, that'd
Just
be a
corruption.
very...
Not all of New York, just the corruption.
wanna
That'd
do
be
the
really
subway.
short because there's no corruption.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's no corruption in
Yeah,
New York.
Okay.
That would be like
And there never
a
has been.
3-minute episode.
Yeah. No, but I really want to do like a New York explainer someday. I just know it would either be like 2 3-hour episodes or a bunch of episodes.
Let's do compromise. Let's do Corruption in New York, starting with 1 episode. It'll probably spiral
That's
off.
not like an episode
And-
for us though. Like that's not our topic. I would just want to do the subway. Like I want to
Corruption
do the
in New-
evolution of
okay.
the lure and the mata and the manure and the nijita and the path.
And then you can use that as an avenue to explain New York and also its corruption.
New York, New York, we have lots of corruption.